Hi, this is Matt Bianca, and welcome to the Sutra Pills podcast. This is the place to listen to some teachings from original Buddhist sutras. A sutra a day keeps the dukkha away.
In this episode, we are not talking about a specific sutra because some subscribers they were a bit confused, so they asked me if I can give a simple introduction about Buddha, which I say plenty of time is not called Buddha, is not his name, but is Gautama or Siddhartha. So Siddhartha Gautama was born in Kapilavastu, in what is currently the southern region of Nepal at the border with India, between 563 and 463 BCE. The accuracy of the dates, of course, are uncertain. His father, Suddhodana, was not a king, but rather a nobleman from the Gautama clan. But be clear, because there is a lot of legend that think that Gautama was a prince, which is not. He held the position of chairman in the assembly of Sakya, a part of the influential kingdom of Kosala, governed by King Pasenadi from the capital city of Savatthi. In certain sutra, Gautama himself acknowledged that, and I quote like one short sentence. They say the Sakyans are subject under the rule of the king of Kosala. And then when he reached the age of 16, as was customary at the time, his father arranged a marriage for him with his cousin Yasodhara, and the two eventually had a son called Rahula. Siddhartha lived a life full of wealth and comfort. Nevertheless, he felt restless and dissatisfied, so much so that he began to question his values and point of view. At the age of 21, he decided to take a tour outside his comfortable house. And here the legend said, and I highlight the legend because we don't know if it's true, even if it's a nice symbolism. So on this trip, he saw a sick man, an old man, a corpse, and a beggar. These symbolic encounters made him understand the suffering that was in the lives of others. It left him confused for several days. He did not understand the meaning of life. He wondered if there was a way to live free from the consequences of illness, old age, and death. In those days, it was normal to live like a beggar for a few years, so Gautama abandoned his wife and son to follow that path. He met two teachers of Veda, the founding writings of modern Hinduism. First, he studied with Alara Kalam, who taught him a meditative philosophy and method that today would be called a yogic meditation. Contemporary yoga would not become a cohesive philosophy for at least another 1,500 years. I open a parenthesis. Here we are not judging, especially in this episode, how bad or good was Gautama abandoning his wife and son. Also, we always have to contextualize historically what we read and what we think. Siddhartha learned this technique quickly. As required by such meditation, he was able to enter a state of nothingness in a short time. The other teacher, Udaka Ramaputta, taught a meditative technique that develops and does not develop perception, a sort of non-dualistic vision. Siddhartha proved that he could learn even this meditation quickly. However, he understood that these techniques were only an evasion, a diversion from a broader understanding. He understood that these philosophies, even if he considered a high level at that time, only led to the manufacture of self. Although his teachings had not yet been enunciated, they were already in place in Siddhartha's mind, as any proliferation of an impermanent self can only lead to suffering and confusion. Both teachers asked him to join them as a third teacher, because it was great, like how it was really like a receptive student, but he refused the offer. He did not believe that prestige, popularity, power were enough to be qualified as a teacher. He thought that if their teachings did not lead to the cessation of ignorance, then they must be abandoned. They believed that by denying the pleasures and needs of the body, they would get better of desires and attachment, finally free their minds. When practices under these two teachers, Siddhartha ate very little. He soon became so emaciated that he told his future disciple that he could feel his spine touching his navel. They also taught him how to control his breathing. One day, while he was washing himself in a river, he fainted. He realized that this rigid asceticism did not lead to any liberation. It was just self-inflicted suffering. So he was frustrated. 6 years of study and many years of asceticism, and he had not yet achieved liberation. In those days, his teaching began to take shape, and he started to think about that one must abandon extremes. The compulsion to indulge in the pleasure of objects and desires are vulgar, inferior, and ignoble. But so is he who torments himself. This practice brings only more illusion. And still today there are many ascetics and pseudo-Buddhist or so-called Oriental schools that meditate for long hours with repetitive chants and period of forced silence. Nothing to do with what Siddhartha was creating in those days. He remembered that when he was a little and felt sad, he would go to sit under a tree and concentrate on his breathing. He decided to try this simple meditative method. When thoughts arose and distracted him, he recognized them, categorized them as thoughts born of ignorance. The Samatha and Vipassana meditative techniques and the first 2 points of the Eightfold Noble Path, right view and right intention, were being born. But we will look at them in a deeper way later on in other episodes. From that moment until his death at the age of 8 years old, or about 8 years old, he never stopped teaching his discoveries to whoever was interested. He explained that there is nothing esoteric or mystical in his teachings. And here I quote, he said, "My teachings are the same for monks and for all others." You can find here in Dirghagama 16, or if you get used to the Pali, to Diga 16. Gautama often used the term hei passiko, which means come and see for yourself. So to reinterpret, like to investigate. The Dharma, his law, where here I open a parenthesis, Dharma is composed by the word dhr, so dhr signifies to hold in Sanskrit. And it has been translated into Indo-European languages. This translation occurred even though it might not be entirely accurate. Interestingly, the initial individuals from the Western world who embarked on translating his teachings were trained British lawyers. That's why probably they decided to translate into law the word Dharma. So the Dharma is not something imposed, but it comes from an individual experience, and therefore it is something to be tried and practiced individually. The goal of these teachings is to recognize and abandon ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. He was not a soothsayer or a religious leader. He did not have the solution to all the problems that people presented to him, because that it was not the core of his philosophy. Hope here clarify a bit his teaching.
This has been the Sutra Pills podcast, and I am Matt Bianca. Thank you to be here and listen to me. Comments are really appreciated. Whatever you want to tell me, just make a comment, even a bad one. Of course, the most important, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering. Bye for now.